One, strip away all of the fragile civilizational wrapping paper. Do we all really just want to kill each other? When you find someone you disagree with, do you want them to die? Does the left want to kill Donald Trump and Elon Musk? Are we in the middle of a French Revolution style age of rage and the rise of assassination culture? 2, AOC and John Fetterman fly first class while being a voice for the people. We break it down with comedian Tim Young. And 3, the story of Yeshiva's university basketball program and their season in the wake of October 7th. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Set a reminder as we continue to grow our audience on all of these digital platforms. That way you don't miss an episode. Plus, you become a member of our community. You drop into the comments section, and you become a member of the Willisha. We're on terrestrial radio, some 36 stations across this great United States of America. But it can always also fit your schedule by simply heading over to Apple or Spotify and hitting subscribe. Not only might we be just underneath the surface, ready and willing to kill one another over our disagreements, according to a brand new study with the rise of assassination culture, but we also might be killing ourselves off. Elon Musk has sounded the warning, and I have some stunning stats to share with you on not just the decline of America, not just the decline of Western civilization, but the decline of humanity in many ways, as we see not fear of overpopulation, but the fear of declining birth rates. We're going to get into all that a little bit later here on the Will Cain Show. But first, we've got to take a minute to announce for you the winner of the Will Cain Show March Madness bracket. After successfully winning the Friends of the Will Cain Show Fantasy Football League, hoisting the trophy above his head in a shocking turn of events, back-to-back championships. The winner of the Will Cain Show March Madness.
Come on.
Why are you clapping? We're supposed to clap.
Come on, Patrick.
Clapping for yourself? What is this?
You got to clap.
Is your host, Will Cain.
I saw the last, 3 seconds there. I think it's rigged.
Oh, yeah.
It was rigged from the start. I don't know
to
how
make
you
Will
did it.
win. Yeah, totally. That's what. Yep.
I mean, the guy didn't even pick up the ball. Right there.
It was a crazy ending.
Oh,
That was the worst ending for Houston since
thought-
one of those space movies.
I thought you were suggesting that somehow behind the scenes there were some machinations in the algorithm at the ESPN March Madness bracket to make sure that I could win, or whoever put our league together could manipulate the point standings to make sure that I continue, let's emphasize continue to win all of our competitions. But what you're actually suggesting is the University of Houston was in on it to help me win the Will Cain Show League.
I mean, Texas culture, man. You guys stay together.
There's a lot of money in sports over there.
A lot of money.
Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah.
I bribed Kelvin Sampson with the big pot pool of money for the Will Cain Show Fantasy Football and March Madness
If it comes
bracket,
down
which
to
amounted
one
to a total of $0 won. It was nothing but a pride bracket, but that was enough for Kelvin Sampson to say to Emmanuel Sharp, do not get a shot off in the last 2 minutes of the game.
Brutal.
And Sharp said, for who? And Sampson said, Will Cain. And Sharp goes, my dog.
Rigged from the start.
Oh, man. So
How does
fun.
it feel, seriously? Like, just if you picked one word, if I just said one word, how does it feel to go through the world thinking everything is rigged, tinfoil?
It's not fun. Yeah. It's very depressing.
Sounds like it. Jeez. Oh, my God.
We should probably just
Pep in your step there, bud.
I don't know.
Just
This
quit.
population thing.
Just quit.
We should just quit. It's all bad.
It's just rigged, all of it. Birth rates.
How does it feel?
March Madness.
How does it feel to win so much, Will? Just all the time. Ratings, brackets, fantasy.
Yeah.
Just feels great,
Yeah.
huh?
Forgot about the ratings.
You're riding a high.
Friends with
Yeah,
the
I wish
leaders
it
of the
did.
free world.
Yeah. It feels good to beat you guys. I'll tell you that.
Sure.
I don't know about winning. It's maybe that's the lesson of there's a couple different stories when it comes to winning. I always fall back on what both Troy Aikman and Bill Parcells have said about winning versus failing. That failing hurts way more than winning feels good, and that you therefore are driven forward by the avoidance of failure. Not debilitatingly, not so much that you don't throw your hat in the arena, but that you compete to avoid the awful feeling of failing. And then there's sort of the Gordon Gekko, Wall Street mentality of winning. Like, it only feels good if I can identify the loser. And so that I can see you guys, like, winning's a zero-sum game. I need to see who lost and to see, like, Patrick's face right now. That feels pretty good. Yeah. Like, more than last night. Like, when Florida won last night, I was like, okay. But to see Adam Klotz on Instagram having to post his humble pie video, which, by the way, I think he was crying. Could have been it's cold in New York, and those were
It was really
sort of
cold
cold
this
weather
morning.
tears. And to see tinfoils just like droopy dog look this morning, it's just that's the spice of life.
Those
That's the
glasses
stuff that
steaming
does
up
it for me.
with tears there. Those tears I see.
Wait, can I just say something?
You wish. I don't care. There's no point in sports anymore. It's all nothing matters. It really doesn't.
Yes, James.
So you've just won the back-to-back fantasy championships amongst friends, and now we're going to compare ourselves to Bill Parcells, Troy Aikman, and Gordon Gekko.
I think present company puts that. I think yes. I think among present company, I am Gordon Gekko meets Troy Aikman meets Bill Parcells. Like,
I feel.
I don't know who you guys are.
I feel less than for sure.
Tom Brady before the
well,
rings.
two-a-days in tinfoil were way down.
Yeah,
like you have to
we don't-
scroll.
we don't
I
need
was
to talk-
I was this close.
We don't need to talk about that.
I was
It's
this
fine.
close.
Take your win and don't make me feel bad.
I'll be back.
All right, so there it is. Hoist the trophy. Put another one on the shelf. Championships keep coming in here at the Will Cain Show. All right, let's get to it with story number 1. Protests across the country continue to rage about Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I read to you now a verbatim from an interview of a protester with a reporter this past weekend. Reporter, do you wish that guy never missed? Speaking of one of the would-be assassins of President Donald Trump. Protester, yes, 3 inches. Whoever thought I would have been so excited about getting an additional 3 inches. But I really was hoping I would have really cemented the idea. I really regret he wasn't on target. Reporter, do you think the attempt will happen? Protester, I sure hope so. Here, watch and listen for yourself.
Tell us what you mean by this.
Well, I mean that it won't fix all the problems, but it sure is a great start. That Liberation Day should not be connected to what he has done. That is not liberation. And I just hope for this country that we can rise above this. And the good way to start might be to have somebody leave. So, we can all hope.
Do you wish that guy never missed?
Yes, 3 inches. Who would have ever thought that I would be so excited about, getting an additional 3 inches?
There you go. As a woman, I'd say 60 years old, gray-haired, wearing a shirt that says, I hope he dies, holding a sign wishing death on Donald Trump. It's not just an anecdote. It's not just a story. According to the Network Contagion Research Institute, a growing number of people are willing to justify and even applaud killing in the name of politics and a warped sense of social justice. The study found 55% of self-identified left-of-center participants justified Trump's assassination to some degree, while 48% did the same for Elon Musk. If you dive in a little deeper, it gets pretty fascinating. Justifying the murder of Elon Musk, 31.6% of all respondents would justify the murder of Musk. As just stated, almost 49% of those left of center would do so. On Donald Trump, 38.5 of all respondents would justify the murder of Donald Trump. 55% from left of center justify the murder of Trump. This is a really dangerous trend in America. It makes me wonder, how much of an outlier is it, this moment and this country? We did go back and ask and look into what was culture like in the 1950s and 1960s. Of course, you had an assassination culture back then with both the assassination of John F. Kennedy and MLK and RFK, but those were seen as national tragedies across the political spectrum. It wasn't embraced. It wasn't justified. You didn't see a significant percentage of the American people wishing death on these individuals. I can't speak to the way that the French polity feels about Emmanuel Macron. I can't speak to the way that Russians feel about Vladimir Putin. But I can say that historically, when we go back in time, it's more reminiscent of a day and age in France in the late 1700s. The French Revolution was absolutely engulfed in this type of rage. Elites led to the gallows, the guillotine. Blood ran in the streets. We talked yesterday about the rise and fall of empires, that on the decline, during the descent, you have civil unrest, you have hatred, and you potentially have violence. That's certainly what it feels like today in America. But I think there's something else that I take away from this, and that is not just the 55% of those on the left that want to see the death of Donald Trump, but the 38% of all respondents. COVID was a fascinating moment for us, when for me, it peeled back the curtains on what really drives us. We talk a good game about embrace of freedom. We talk a good game about the protection of our republic. But all it took was a little bit of fear. And we abandoned everything at the altar of self-preservation. Everything was revealed about our neighbor, about our friends, about some of our family. Put on your mask, stay home, get 6 feet away. All it took was a little bit of fear, and we revealed that one of the biggest motivations in humanity is not greed or ambition or freedom, but fear. And I have to wonder, like, all these trappings of our civilization, you know, who we are as a people, our constitution, our democracy, if they're not just papering over these base human level motivations, and that's what civilization is to pull us away from who we are at our base. But I also think what we reveal is just how absolutely fragile it all is. If a good 38% of all of us are ready to see the death of our political rival. And I think it is particularly acute on the left, in the echo chambers from where they live, that creates a sense of moral certainty and moral superiority, that anyone else that believes differently is worthy of nothing but assassination. I think there's also a fascinating study out that shows the death of humanity may be a self-inflicted wound. This is from Professor Peter St. Onge, a frequent guest of the Will Cain Show, a friend of the show. Listen to these stats. In Japan, on average, 4 grandparents yield a single grandchild. 4 grandparents, 1 grandchild. In Korea, 100 Koreans will become just 8 great-grandchildren. That is the decline, the death of a civilization. China is on track to lose 600 million people in a single lifetime. That is 5 times the population, total population of Japan. And by the way, Europe, down the same path as fertility rates of native-born Europeans are about 1.3. That means you lose a third of your people every generation. Wonder what United States is? 1.5 children per couple. These are stunning statistics that suggest our real issue isn't overpopulation. Our real issue is declining to replace ourselves. Now, this came up in our morning call too. They said, isn't there an issue, about overpopulation? Well, people isn't this good for access to resources. People have been screaming at the skies and wringing their hands about the problems of overpopulation for well over 250 years. I tell this story all the time because it's one of my favorites. You've probably heard at some point the idea of someone being described as a Malthusian. Oh, that's a Malthusian idea. You are a Malthusian. What does that mean? Well, it goes back to a scientist from the early 1800s, Thomas Malthus, who predicted the decline of civilization on Earth because of overpopulation. He predicted that overpopulation would mean limitation of resources, a struggle over resources, and ultimately mass starvation and declining populations. Now, if you just kind of did the math like Malthus did with here's our available food sources, here's the rate of population growth, here's the number of people on the earth right now, he wasn't wrong in his calculations. But what Malthus was incapable of doing was seeing what would change in the next 200 years. In short, he was incapable of seeing innovation. Specifically, that innovation came along like this. First, they discovered fertilizer in the form of bat guano, bat poop, islands of bat poop that they figured out helped crops grow bigger, stronger, more easily. All of a sudden, food sources exploded, population exploded. Then came, which Malthus couldn't see, the Industrial Revolution, the tractor, which replaced the horse, the plow horse, the beast of burden, because those animals were eating up something like half the world's food sources. Now that same land, those same crops could be devoted to human population, and population exploded once again. And then in the 1900s, Malthus couldn't see and didn't predict genetic modification of food. How all of a sudden from a 100-year span, we went from wheat stalks 2 feet tall to wheat stalks 6 feet tall. And a mass explosion of available food sources again, and yet more explosion in population. Because what you've learned is the thing that pushes humanity forward isn't wheat. It isn't food stocks. It's ideas, because ideas drive innovation. And in order to continue to have a wealth of ideas, you need an expansion of people. You need new people who have new ideas. And that exchange is what allows us to continue to flourish. If we're not having sex, if we're not fertile, if we're not having babies, yeah, of course, we're going to have societies on an individual scale fall. You'll have populations exploding in Africa and across the equator, Central America. Those populations will flood into your civilization. They'll change the nature of your civilization. But over time, you also see just people, fewer of us. And if there's fewer of us, there's fewer of ideas. If there's fewer ideas, there's less flourishing. We may all want to kill each other, but we might just be killing ourselves right now in real time. Let's talk about this. Plus, they just created a dire wolf. You know a dire wolf from like Game of Thrones? Like from the past? They just made a dire wolf. Maybe this is tied to a lack of population and replacing ourselves. Maybe there's a conversation to be had there. We'll have it with comedian Tim Young next on The Will Cain Show. If you can make a dire wolf, can you make a mammoth? If you can make a mammoth, can you make a dinosaur? If you can make a dinosaur, won't we just be making humans? It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, on the Fox News Facebook page. Hit subscribe at Apple or Spotify. Tim Young is a comedian. He's a media fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He's the CEO of the Veebs app as well, and you can find him on X at Tin Runs His Mouth. And this is his first time here on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Tim?
Thanks for having me, Will. I got to ask you, because I actually watched the show, unlike your other guests. I'm very respectful. How many Pearl Snap shirts do you have in your collection? Because you got a hell of a collection of Pearl Snaps.
Okay, see, here's what I thought you were going to say. I thought you heard the first segment, and you were like, okay, I'm going to comment on the first segment, and then say, I watched the show, Will, and kind of play that game. And then you did that. And I was like, oh, shoot, he may actually watch some of the show, because that's a callback, multiple episodes in the making. And the answer, Tim, is I have a lot. I have a lot.
Yeah. Well, I had my own collection until I got fat.
Oh, really?
I'm waiting. They're waiting for me to start working. No, listen, you bring me on, Will, and I love your show. It's like the end of the world is coming. Now here's comedian Tim Young.
Elon Musk is worried about it too, Tim. I mean, this is the thing, like, if we're not having babies, it's Elon Musk and it's Rachel Campos Duffy. This is both of their favorite subjects.
Well,
Which, by the way, both
he's
of them
got
have
14,
a lot of,
she's got
lot of
9.
babies. Yeah, right. So it could just be a superiority complex by them both. But you do. You got to have babies. You got to have a civilization. I feel guilty. I only have 2. 2's not enough, Tim.
Get on it, Will. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing right now? You're doing a podcast. You could be making a baby right now. I'm saving the world.
I'm too old now, man. I'm too old. I guess not. Musk is still having babies. When should a man stop having babies? Like, when is that? I mean, like, there's rich guys, they're having babies in 60s and 70s, right? Like,
yeah,
some of these billionaires, they're still having babies.
If you can afford it, why not make some more, rich, spoiled children when you're 80 and you're a billionaire? I'm at 44 and I don't have any yet because I haven't met a woman that I didn't think I would divorce until recently. So that's kind of that's where I am. Look, I'm all about having that nuclear family and having a real partnership moving forward before I have children. And I know that I made a lot of big mistakes.
You made a lot of big mistakes in what?
Dating. Are you kidding? I am the worst picker of women, especially in politics. I've been in politics now for 23 years, and you know this, in New York, DC, LA, there aren't a lot of quality human beings with a quality set of morals and values to choose from, and it's getting worse and worse. The herd's getting thinner there of quality people, and so finding that right person who would be equally as responsible to have a family and care and raise a real respectable member of society is getting hard to find.
Wait, I want to talk about this for a minute. We have other topics that we have scheduled to talk about.
Yeah.
So I've been out of the game here, Tim, for a while. I've been married. I can do this, but I've been married more than 20 years. And so I checked out of the game pre-dating apps, pre-dating websites, pre-Instagram, pre all of this, okay? Now, you're single.
No,
I have been told. Oh, you're not single. You're just not, you don't have kids. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What, are you married?
About to be.
You're about to be. Congratulations, man.
Thanks.
But you were dating in that environment. And I've been told by friends who have honestly gotten divorced that when you enter that world as a guy, you're actually a pretty hot commodity. Like, men who have some level of success, who have some capability of making a living, all that, you find yourself in that environment. And I'm not saying that, there's a ton of fish in the sea or whatever, but it's actually made it pretty good for meeting other people.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, especially on that, what's the app, Bumble, where women, and look, I'm not saying I'm like a good looking guy, but I'm just saying you're right about this. You have a little bit of personality, you have a little bit of success, and especially when you're in a liberal city like a DC, these women are so used to kind of and I hate to bring up this term because it gets into that alpha and beta thing, but it's a lot of beta males, a lot of guys who claim to be feminists, who ultimately, when women grow up, they realize that they want stability in their lives and not some guy who's just going to talk about their rights and maybe cook them dinner once in a while or something, or clean the house, or be beneath them. So it is a lot easier, but when you get into those liberal areas too, the other issue is you'll be on a couple of good dates with somebody, and then they'll start crying about how Bernie didn't win the presidential election in 2016, and then that's kind of over too.
Yeah, I saw this. Fox News had this article up, Tim, where they I guess they went to one of these protests and they asked all of these liberal protesters what their ideal vision of a society is, which is interesting to me. Okay, let's just stop yelling at each other for a minute. If you had your way, what would it look like? What do you want? And it is a lot of abstract cliches about, but one of the things you consistently hear is an expansion of rights. I want everybody to have rights. I want everybody, and I read that and watch that. I'm like, what rights are you talking about? And I think what they're talking about, whether knowingly or not, and this is where the right starts yelling communist at everything, but it's true in that they're looking for positive rights. You know the difference, I'm sure you do, between negative and positive rights. And the term rights has been so stretched that I think they are unknowingly in many ways, but arguing for positive rights, meaning I have a right to health care, I have a right to a certain minimum level standard of living and wage. I have a right to all of these things that I should have in life without thinking about where those rights come from. How do you get those? Like, how do you get a minimum standard of living?
Are you asking me how to get a minimum standard? If you look behind me, I clearly don't know how to get a minimum standard of living. Will I have a collection of whiskey and hang out. But no, look, I think a lot of these people got participation trophies when they were kids. And so they want more and more handouts because of it. We came up in a generation where when we sucked at something, people said we sucked at it. If you mouthed off at the right person, you got punched in the face. We learned the old school way of handling life. And so when you're given a participation trophy early on, you want participation trophies moving forward, including your free handouts from the federal government that takes away from people who have done better than you in life. You think that you can go to college and get a women's studies degree and not become a barista making minimum wage. It all stems back to getting participation trophies and candy instead of getting told that you sucked or you were the fat kid who couldn't play any sports, which is me. So I learned how to read books,
Yeah, Tim, I find myself, I've had this conversation. I had it yesterday with Batya Ungar-Sargon, and I played a clip from her from Piers Morgan's show yesterday a couple days ago on TV. And she's a former Democrat. And I find myself in this place, like, I don't know about this tariff situation. I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't know if it'll work or not. But I find myself in a place where I'm starting to agree with a diagnosis of a problem with people who formerly were on the left. And that is that income inequality is a problem. Like, it's a societal and civilizational problem. Just meaning when that happens, you start having real problems in society, potentially violence. But the difference in the prescription between, we'll call it MAGA and the left, on acknowledgement of a problem that you agree on, is what you just talked about, the difference between rights and participation trophies versus an opportunity. It seems like MAGA's approach to this is, hey, this is a problem. We got to figure out a way to support the middle class so we don't have this huge divide. So what are we going to do? We're going to bring back jobs. We're going to bring back opportunity. Where the left's answer is, what are we going to do? We're going to redistribute wealth. We're going to take from you and give to you. And that is basically a governmental policy of a participation trophy.
It's a hand up instead of a handout. I came up in Baltimore City. I grew up in the hood in Baltimore City. I went to law school there, and I helped out a lot of kids. I worked in a youth program. I volunteered with kids who had just gotten out of juvenile hall. And so, they get out of lockup, and it is very, very easy for them with no family structure, with no money coming back in, to go back to doing whatever crime they were doing, which a lot of them, it was selling drugs because it's easy money. And this program was set to give them, job skills. We got them their GED. We got them back into schools. We got them back working as best as we could into the real world. And that is the difference. It's, instead of just giving you a hand up, it's giving you that job training, giving you that opportunity to become a real functional quality member of society. And Democrats just don't see those policies as, I think it's like they don't want to do the hard work. It's much easier to just give you a free handout and hope that you vote that way. I mean, it's what they did with illegal aliens crossing the border here. It's instead of working to become a legal citizen, which we're all open to, you just bring everybody in, you give them a bunch of handouts, and it ruins society.
And then, so is this a unique form of hypocrisy in your mind that we see, and we can share this with the audience, anybody watching on YouTube or Facebook? Revelations, here's Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, the populist voice of the people from the left, flying first class. And here is John Fetterman, flying first class. Again, another populist voice of the left. You took this picture, Tim. You found him in first class and took that picture?
Well, to give him credit.
Nice Rangers hat. Are you a Rangers fan?
No,
What's
I'm
going on there?
Rangers. I'm just repping the business today.
Oh.
But look, I can sympathize with Fetterman because we were on a 2-in-1 plane, 2 seats on one seat on the other side. And he cannot fit on a plane. The man is a very, very large man. So he was in 1A because he literally could not walk into the plane. You have to hunch over. He's kind of like Shrek when he comes on a plane. But AOC, she could at least play the role, right? I mean, we all know that she's making good money between Congress and, appearances and books and whatever else she's selling. And she could at least play the game and sit with people. But I think her fear is, and her people's fear is, that she would have to sit and answer real questions and interact with people. And and potentially sit next to somebody like me, even though I'm a first class guy. I don't try to hide that. I'm not trying to be a you know, like I think that is a protect mode for her to be up there, but it's totally hypocritical for her to be living the high life while she's saying she's a woman of the people.
Can I tell you about first class? So first of all, I never really flew first class before I started working in corporate America, right? And then you get a corporate job and you can say, okay, you can negotiate your contract and say, okay, then I'm flying. If it's over 3 hours, then it's a first class ticket. That's how it works, okay? So then I got a little used to it. And it's hard to go back. I'm going to be real for a minute. It's hard to go back. But I still hadn't bought like much of my own ever because we're thrifty. My wife is. So my birthday was last weekend and she takes me on a getaway and I have to go down. Now I'm flying coach on my birthday, which was a big birthday. I turned 50. And she's like, I thought we weren't first class people. We didn't do that, only on special occasions. And I was like, is my 50th birthday not a special occasion? Like, if this isn't it, when is the special occasion? I have to go down for my special occasion. Business class or first class. For my 50th birthday, I have to go to coach.
That sounds like something you should bring up with your family law attorney. But look, no, my whole thing is I've gamed the system on points, and I learned this. I don't live a lavish lifestyle, but I've gamed the system on points, and I got all the credit cards and all the things. And you put all the points on one credit card, you can get first class forever. That's my
try.
Game.
It's hard to get upgraded these days. It seems hard.
Well, when you're coming out of New York, like you do, it is. When I come out of connections from DFW, if I go to New York, Boston, hey, let's give you guys tips. And I know everybody tuned in here to hear, deep political talk. Let's give them tips and tricks on traveling. If you're going DFW to like LA, Boston, New York, you're not getting it. But if you're going to like Grand Rapids or, Charleston, you're getting it. You're getting the upgrade.
Oh, there. By the way, I've never met him in person. How big is Fetterman? Like, what is he? Are we talking 6'6"? What is he?
He's got to be, so I'm 5'10", and he's got to be a half foot taller than me. So we're talking 6'5", 6'6". Yeah, he's a monster
and a big guy, not just tall.
And very nice.
Bills?
I was
300.
Oh man, I bet he's 330, 340. He's big. No, and the thing is too, I got beat up for taking that picture with him because apparently I'm not a real conservative for being nice to somebody who's on the left. But he's a really nice guy. I don't agree with anything he votes for. He says some stuff once in a while, but you have conversation with him. He's a nice guy, and he dresses like me. I can't knock a guy who's wearing hoodies all the time. Although when he wore a hoodie to inauguration, that was too far.
I can't believe somebody beat you up about that. I mean, I can believe it, but there's no way. I would love to meet Fetterman, and I'd love to interview Fetterman. I think he's interesting. I disagree with him on a lot. I think we have some levels of agreement too, which would be interesting. But that's the bottom line. And I also think he's authentic. I don't think he's a faker. I think he believes what he believes.
Yeah, and he's I think because of the horrible thing that happened to him with his traumatic brain injury, I think he's become more honest and he's very direct. And like he came on the plane and like was the kindest person to everyone there. I've met a bunch of politicos, a bunch of Republicans are kind of nasty in person. I won't ask you if you ever come on my show. I'll ask you who the nastiest people are in politics, Will, but I won't hold you up to that on your show. But as far as politicians go, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Don't agree with half of the crazy things he does or says or votes for, but again, very kind guy, and I can't knock that.
Okay. So I want to ask you about this dire wolf thing. You saw this story. It's out of Dallas. So I can't remember the name of the company. The guys can tell me. It's Colossal something. But they're messing around with genetics. And so they took the genetics of a couple different things. They started with the gray wolf. That was their backbone. And they started changing the DNA strands in the gray wolf, adding this. And they've recreated, I don't think it's exact, but it's pretty close to the extinct dire wolf, which I didn't even know the dire wolf. Honestly, if I'm being real, I didn't know it was a real thing. I thought it was from Game of Thrones. But I guess it was a real thing. These giant, this is a white one. I think they have one or two. White dire wolves they're bringing back from extinction, Tim.
Yeah, they're gonna. I think that's a mistake. But for me personally, they got the DNA out of people's teeth or the dog's teeth, and I'm just thinking to myself like I don't want to be cloned, so I'm gonna stop brushing my teeth from now on. That'll be my excuse to my fiance. Just let them go rotten. They can't get DNA from me. That's scary. I mean, who knows what we can start to clone from there? But if we're gonna go down this road, I was talking with your producer before I came on for the segment. I'm like, let's go Jurassic Park, man. I want to see some dinosaurs. Let's just call the company InGen. Let's get Isla Nublar or whatever, and we can go start making some Stegosaurus and some Brontosaurus, and we know how it goes. It goes wrong, and then we start getting picked up by pterodactyls in the streets. But let's do it.
Well, Elon Musk said make a mammoth. Make a baby woolly mammoth. And what, I mean, they will. I mean, clearly they will. And if, I don't think this stuff is a matter of can. It's a matter of when. They are going to make dinosaurs. Like Jurassic Park is going to be real. We're going to have dinosaurs back in some capacity.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see it, but I don't know if it'll happen in our lifetime. And if it does, like I said, it will actually be. And not to be like a conspiracy guy here, but they're probably doing it on an island somewhere right now already. They're probably playing around with the stuff. They're just letting out what they want us to know, not to be that guy. But like, they got the wolves that are cute. We'll start with those. But they've been working on everything else.
And then obviously the issue and the question is people. And I think we're already doing this to some degree. So, and this isn't this is bad or this is good thing. This is just going on. So IVF, right, is a bunch of embryos, and you can select, I believe, which embryo you want to move forward with. So there's some selection right there. I don't know how much they can tell you about the various embryos. Like, I know they can do male and female, so you can select the gender. I don't know how much else they can know. But I mean, I don't think it's a far stretch at all till you can start. What was that movie? Was it Gattaca? Was that Gattaca with Ethan Hawke? Where like you can start selecting for eye color, intelligence, these types of things. And then from there, I just don't think we're on a far stretch where you're creating it without the human parents really much involved in the process for people, the future of people.
Yeah, this is scary, and it gets into a lot of religious arguments that again, like, do we have the right to do this? We're on that slippery slope. I'm sure that these experiments have already happened. We just, again, don't know about it because that our scientists somewhere, if not in America, then in China, where they have like basically no human rights. They just start playing around and seeing what they can create. I'm sure it's been done, and it's whether or not we have the right to do it. That's going to be an interesting legal battle or legislative battle probably 50 years from now, maybe not even that long.
Oh, I think sooner. I saw a headline this morning, Tim. I didn't read the article yet. I wanted to, where it said something like the Supreme Court still doesn't know if embryos are property or people. So, Oof. Like, all of this, and right now, by the way, it is property. I think that's the way it's treated. Anyone who's ever had IVF knows that you have leftover embryos. Like, what happens to those embryos is a serious moral decision, but it's also a decision yet that the courts are going to have some input on, I would imagine, at some point here. Because once those things start getting more evolved.
Yeah, we've got a member of the Supreme Court that doesn't know what a woman is. So, I mean, this is a really, really scary situation. It's so easy to forget that it was Ketanji Brown Jackson who was the one who said, I'm not a biologist, so I don't know what a woman is. So, like, we're in with a serious decision like that looming, that's the last person you want on the Supreme Court.
I just keep coming back to this on every level, Tim, on everything. The rate of innovation, the rate of technological advancement, the rate of information spreading, AI, and then even little stuff. I've been talking about what's happening with college sports and the NCAA and all these things. Like, everything is changing so fast. I think, every generation has said the next is taking it to hell in a handbasket. So you have to dismiss that to some degree. And we're not sure it's going to be worse. But I don't know that there's ever been a moment in human history, including the Industrial Revolution, where you could have pointed to and go, the rapid rate of change is unparalleled. And I think we're living in that right now. 50 years from now, so, I'll probably be gone. But that's another thing. Lifespans are all of a sudden expanding, like rapidly as we speak. It's probably going to be unrecognizable to the life we live today.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, when you look at the Industrial Revolution, they were like, oh, we made a new, machine that can, sew things a little bit faster. Now we can create life. That is a scary jump. It's an exponential jump, and it's not going anywhere. And then where do we go from there? Like, I mean, even I'm a Star Trek nerd. Even watching Star Trek, it's like they couldn't even predict the future from back in the day. I mean, they had cell phones pinned down and laser guns, but other than that, I mean, the rate of genetic manipulation and what we could do, it's incredibly scary. And like I said, like it's scarier that we have an activist judge on the Supreme Court right now who refuses to define what a woman is when we have actual human life coming down that's going to be decided on.
Yeah, because you're not gonna be able to roll the clock backwards. Like for anybody listening, it's like, oh my God, we got to arrest this. You just can't. It's impossible to arrest this level of human advancement. So the only thing that you can fall back on is like eternal values and eternal knowledge, and like, I mean, there are some things that are constant, like wisdom, faith, values that we know have guided humanity through thousands of years. Those have to be the things that guide you through this rapid change. And if you're led by people who can't even identify biology, you're not a ship without a sail. You're a ship with a sail but no rudder. That's what it is. You're going to blow anywhere the wind takes you.
Yeah, it's incredibly scary where we are. So let's start with the wolves. Hey, they were cute. It's like, look, we got some cute puppies. Also, genetic mutations are coming down the line, and they're going to start trying to create human life from embryos and. Embryos are life, but create human life from nothing in a lab. I mean, this is, you're right. 50 years from now, it's going to look like a totally different planet than what we're in now.
By the way, have you ever been around much, Tim, wild animals, like non-domesticated animals?
Got chased by a caribou once in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Okay.
So that counts.
When I worked on a ranch in Montana, we had horses, mules, cattle. Okay, these are domesticated animals. These are animals that respond to humans in some way, right? One time we were hired to load and transport a shipment of buffalo. They were babies. They weren't big. They were all young. You immediately understood the difference between a domesticated animal and a wild animal. Like, they are doing things off instinct and herd mentality and craziness that is completely uncontrollable. My point is, you don't want a pet direwolf. You don't want a pet coyote. You don't want to try to bring these wild animals in and pretend like they're cool, edgy, domestic animals. So good luck to whoever wants to raise those direwolf.
It also sounds like you described the difference between dating a woman with values from the South and a woman in D.C.
Maybe. All right. I hate to end here, but this is on the list of things that I do want to talk about today because it's not an upbeat thing. So the manifesto, and the diaries, the writings of Audrey Hale, who is the shooter from Nashville, who went into the Christian school, killed a bunch of those children, have continued to be released, some of her writings. And it's pretty eye-opening, some of the stuff she wrote about, like wanting to kill all the white kids. And, she's clearly racially motivated in this stuff. Whatever it was, why, who knows? I mean, she was a white person. But the motivations are pretty ugly and pretty revealing, Tim.
Yeah. The scariest thing, because I read through some of the things that she said. It's no different, and I'm not saying this hyperbolically. This is very truthfully. It's no different than what I've heard on The View. A lot of the stuff that she said were the talking points from the extreme left, like television hosts. And you wonder who's still watching this and who's still being affirmed by the crazy things that they say on The View, where they're accusing people of sexual assault, or they're accusing people of, racism, or saying that all, white people are bad, and these like crazy tropes. This is who's listening to it. This is who's being reinforced by it. And it's just it's a scary place where we are, that someone can think this way. And I think there's, of course, mental illness involved as well. But when you have some of these talking points being parroted on television, by mainstream channels, when MSNBC, you can hear it, Joy Reid's gone now, but they've got her replacements are in there saying the same things. It's a very scary situation.
I started out with this new poll by this institute that looked at the rise of assassination culture and political violence, where 55% of the left is kind of good with or justifying the death of Donald Trump. By the way, not natural cause death of Donald Trump. And it does make me wonder, because 39% of all respondents, Tim, were also okay with it. So it made me wonder, has this always been who we are, and we just papered over it with like the niceties of civilization? I see you shaking your head already. You think this is on the rise, and I'm assuming because of what you just said, the rise of some of this rhetoric and othering and moral superiority.
Oh yeah, I mean it's not just that, but let's go back to participation trophies. What do you do when you're a petulant child or you have a kid who's a little spoiled kid and you don't get your way? You start acting out, you throw things, you get violent. That's how kids act until they're, disciplined appropriately. And that's what we have a generation of now. So we have people who only know how to lash out and get violent and break people's property like Teslas, and they're being reinforced by national television hosts. This is rising because of the left losing, and I hope it ends soon, and I hope something is done about it. But again, back to mostly peaceful protests. You look at this, like the volume has been turned up. We're the boiling frog. The volume has been turned up for a very, very long time here. When they're justifying burning Minneapolis or what was it? This autonomous zones, Chaz in Seattle. It was just summer of love. This has all been given the green light because we're pandering to these people who got participation trophies back in the day and are losing now.
I think you're right, unfortunately. Tim Young is a comedian. He's a fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Check him out on X at Tim Runs His Mouth. He's repping, as he mentioned, not the Texas Rangers today, but Veebs. Why are you a Rangers fan, Tim? You grew up in Baltimore.
Well, listen, I've gone through a lot in my life with the Orioles and then the Mets, and then the Rangers. When I finally became a resident here of Texas, started doing okay, and so I was like, you finally gave me something to believe in. And also, they're down the street, and they get cheap tickets when they're losing.
They're one of the few teams, not few, Rangers and Stars give us something to cheer about in the Dallas area. All right, Tim Young, check him out. Thanks so much for being with us today, Tim. Good to meet you. Glad to have you on the show. All right. Make sure you check out Tim Young. I think he's right, by the way, about the boiling frog as well. Not just through a short window, but what we talked about the last couple of days. Like, this is what happens. This is the recipe. This is the path. When an empire it begins its decline, internal division, and then potentially violence, even more often than not, violence is par for the course. We've got to figure out a way, see if we can reverse history. All right, coming up, Fox Nation has a new show out, Rebound, a year of triumph and tragedy at Yeshiva University basketball. It's about the season at the only Jewish university in the United States after the October 7th attacks in Israel. We have the director, Pat Dimon, and the coach, Elliot Steinmetz, on our show next. After the October 7th attacks in Israel, Yeshiva University, the only Jewish university in the United States, and their basketball program, which had several players from Israel, had a tough season in front of them. It has been chronicled in a new Fox Nation special, Rebound, a year of triumph and tragedy at Yeshiva University basketball. This is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com. Joining me now is Pat Dimon and Coach Elliot Steinmetz. Coach Steinmetz is the head coach at Yeshiva University, and Pat Dimon is the director of Rebound. Thanks for being with me, fellas.
Thanks for having us.
Pat, you are also one of the guys behind Full Swing on Netflix, very popular series that focuses in on many of the professional golfers, F1 style. I can't remember the name of the F1 documentary, but a lot of these have gotten really popular. Full Swing's great. Some of the guys on the show are saying it's their favorite show. What got your attention about Yeshiva University, this story, and the desire to put together Rebound?
Yeah, Coach and I were introduced a couple of years before the attacks, so we had a relationship with his son, who's a professional pitcher. So, we had a relationship, and then obviously the attacks happened, and we reached out to the school, and we reached out to Coach, and, we said, this is a really compelling, amazing story, albeit obviously devastating circumstances, but this is something we need to follow and document, and Coach and Yeshiva trusted us and trusted myself to run this film, and so off we were.
And Coach Steinmetz, tell me about your team. Tell me about the player makeup and what happened on October 7th affected your team.
Yeah, so we are made up of obviously Jewish student athletes. 6 of our players last year were Israeli. 3 of them had served in the IDF prior to coming over to university. I myself was in Jerusalem on October 7th, a little bit delayed getting back due to flight cancellations. It was a challenge, obviously, coming back 3 days late and just having a group of obviously mixed of Jewish and Jewish Israeli student athletes who were trying to figure out if they wanted to play basketball. Some of them trying to figure out if they were going to go back and serve in the IDF again, and just trying to find a way to get a message out that was bigger than the results of games. And Pat kind of brought that to us.
Talk to me about that debate and the decision. Like, did you have players that went back to Israel? Was the team divided on whether or not to continue the season?
So they weren't. Initially it was just more of a, standing around looking at each other and like, how do we practice? How do we even prepare? We had players who called their units back in the IDF and asked if they were needed. They were told to kind of hang tight for now. But ultimately, we had a group conversation literally day one, and the decision was, we're gonna figure this out, but we're gonna find a way for this to be bigger than basketball. We started coming up with ideas right then. None of them were a documentary, but there were ideas thrown around by the team, in terms of bringing in, kids from Israel potentially at some point who were displaced by the war, running clinics for them, doing things just off the court that we could do to affect people. And that kind of became the driving goal of the season.
And Pat, when you approached a lot of the players, like, how was it received? Hey, we're going to document you guys through this entire season.
Yeah, listen, in all the projects we do, you mentioned Full Swing and working with any athlete, professional, college, whatever it may be. I think I pride myself on coming in as a human being first and gaining trust and building those relationships out. And then, you kind of approach it as a human where we're dealing with, war and life and death and a very sensitive topic. So this is obviously a little bit different than some of the other projects. So I think with the relationships and our crew and myself, we built those relationships, and they saw how passionate and serious we were about telling this story. Obviously, we were with them after the attacks, and then we were with them in Israel in January after that, and that was a really, I think that was a moment where everyone, team, coach, our staff was like, hey, we're all in on this, and we're all committed. We were there during war, and it was a really sensitive time with players going back and seeing family for the first time since the attacks, going and helping communities and helping the country where they could. So I think they saw the sincerity and how I approach storytelling, and they knew, this is the real deal.
Yeah. And Coach Steinmetz, this had to have been all season long, like juggling these emotions, juggling what it takes in a normal basketball season to get your players ready. Like, now you've got this. I'm not talking about the documentary. I'm talking about the emotional impact of everything happening in the world around your team.
There's no doubt. It was, I said it after the season. This will go down as probably most unique, certainly the most unique team in Yeshiva University's history. And for all the wrong reasons. I hope we never have a team like that again that's playing under the umbrella of war and so much going on. We had to change rules. We don't usually allow guys to have their phones in practice. We had guys checking their phones during practice. Every time a siren went off and there was a rocket attack, guys want to make sure their families are okay. And that just has to take priority. So I think the perspective changed more than anything else. The perspective on life, the perspective on what sports is about. And I think that was the biggest driving change, I think. And everybody, all of our players kind of jumped on board with that, and we did the best we could with it.
What is the best you could? You hate to ask about basketball, because it's sort of like the least important thing going on in this entire human drama, but it's also the centerpiece of this story, this documentary. It's also the centerpiece of your job, everyone's job there. You still got to get out there and you got to play basketball. So, how were you guys able to pull that off successfully?
So it was from a basketball perspective, a pretty successful season, considering, I guess. We were up and down throughout the year. We took our losses for sure. We ended up making a run, lost in the conference championship game to a really good team. And then we brought it back this year and thankfully had a different ending to the end of the season this year.
What was it? What was the end of this season?
So this year we were able to win our conference championship and go to the NCAA tournament, which was a great experience for this class.
Yeah. Pat, tell me, if we tune into Fox Nation, I'm sure you focus in on a lot of these individuals, a lot of these stories. Share with some of those that we could expect, like some of the, more impactful stories you came across.
Yeah. So, obviously you're dealing with a team, and we focus on coach and a few of the, marquee players, Zevi Adi, who graduated last year. Zevi, I think, is a senior this year, right, Coach? A few of the players that are from Israel, Tom. But really what the viewer is going to see is how sport can really unite and educate and kind of and bring light to a dark time where it gets, for these young adults, it got their mind off of a really tough time. Well, even for an hour or two a day, that is sometimes enough to get you through those tough times. So, the viewer's really going to see a season with a team and the ebbs and flows of, missing home. How do we focus on basketball? We're committing to kind of be this beacon of light in a dark time for our people, for our country, for everyone. And so the viewer's really going to see this ebb and flow of a whole season, really, from the beginning of the season after the attacks. We go with them back to Israel in January for about a week, and then we come back for the second half of the season where there's the ups and downs, and then obviously they pull it out and they make it to the conference championships. Sadly to lose. But yeah, you really get an idea of, who this group is. You may not know a lot about their faith and who they are. So kind of breaking down some of these preconceived notions and just seeing, a team and a culture going through a hard time, but using basketball as, kind of a beacon of light in that time.
And I have to think, Coach, it ends up being a healthy outlet for your players. I mean, as Pat talked about, you got that hour or two a day where physically you're required to be present somewhere else. A physical, and I don't mean just presence. I mean, sweating, working hard. It's, it is something that transports you away from other world concerns, or at least comes as close as possible in certain situations. And I would have to think also becomes a thing that creates a unique bond. Of all the teams you've had, I imagine it has to be something that created a unique bond within that team.
There's no doubt. This is the closest group I've probably ever had from a chemistry standpoint, and we've had some pretty damn good teams over the last number of years. But these guys are as close as it gets, and I think a large part of that was the trip last year and everything they've gone through and kind of handling adversity. And in terms of that distraction, we talked about it throughout the year. October 7th and the things that have gone on since are not things that you move on from, but you still move forward. You can't you're not going to sit in your dorm room or apartment and kind of bury your head and wait, for the world to change. The world's not going to change. So you find ways to move forward and you find ways to have an impact. And for these guys, basketball was that way.
All right, the series is Rebound, a year of triumph and tragedy at Yeshiva University basketball. It's up on Fox Nation. It's a two-part special. Pat Dimon's the director. Coach Elliot Steinmetz is the head coach at Yeshiva University, and we think you should check it out. Coach, Pat, thank you guys so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Will, for having us.
All right, best of luck to both of you. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on the Will Cain Show. We're going to be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. 12 o'clock Eastern Time or Spotify and Apple anytime you like. Just hit subscribe. Thanks for hanging out with us. Go check out Rebound at Fox Nation, and we'll see you again next time.